It's hardly breaking news that the public has soured on the media, but the latest figures are truly sobering. 80% of Americans believe TV and newspaper reporters are dishonest and unethical, according to a Gallup poll. 80%, putting them barely ahead of car salesmen and members of Congress. Joining us now from New York is Joe Concha, a columnist for the website Mediaite. And Joe, what accounts for this massive vote of no confidence in reporters?
Well, Howie, I think there's three factors, really. And the first is we have to go back to a 2013 poll that Pew did, Pew Research. And it talked about how cable news in particular is becoming more opinionated. MSNBC, for instance, does 85% opinion. CNN does 46%. Fox is in the middle, 55%. So you have reporters that are out there not only giving you the news, but perhaps giving context, perspective, and opinion. And when you have a polarized society, 50-50 split, basically ideologically split, what we're seeing is more mistrust in reporters because they may be giving an opinion that the audience may not like. So that's
so. For example, let me jump in here. So,
sure.
For example, when MSNBC and Fox spent a fair amount of time sniping at each other, their anchors and pundits, this you think maybe discredits the whole biz, as if Coke and Pepsi were saying, "Boy, that other stuff really stinks. Don't drink it."
Exactly, because they may be trying to push a narrative, and if you don't agree with that narrative, maybe some mistrust is coming with that as a result. So, I think that's one part. I think another part, Howie, is media watchdogs and the emergence of Newsbusters, Media Matters, Mediaite. Mistakes that used to be missed, Howie, are now being magnified. And when they get magnified, they go on YouTube. They go viral. It's a reporter's worst nightmare to make an error these days because a million people are going to see it that otherwise would have missed it.
Well, it's healthy, I think, for there to be millions of watchdogs, but are they sometimes being over-magnified? One slip of the tongue and something dominates the internet for 3 days.
Well, the irony is that some of these watchdogs, like Newsbusters, goes after only liberal sites. Media Masters only goes after conservative, particularly Fox News. So they may be pushing a narrative as well, even though they're supposed to be honest brokers in these types of situations. But, Howie, I think the biggest reason is all the mistakes that we saw this year, starting with the Boston bombings.
Okay, so in the Boston bombings, you had CNN reporting an arrest that didn't exist, that had not taken place. And then, of course, more recently, you had 60 Minutes having to retract and apologize for its report on Benghazi, a key source misleading that CBS program. You've also had you talk about polarization, the apologies and resignations of people like Martin Bashir and Alec Baldwin at MSNBC. So how important is that? You think it's undermining the credibility, particularly on some of these journalistic errors?
Sure, absolutely. And let's be clear with Boston, by the way. Associated Press also made a mistake there. Boston Globe and even Fox News reported an arrest that did not happen. CNN was more magnified because they're more seen as a place for breaking news. At least they were at that time. Sorry,
and some of the others were online. So basically, though, if one news organization makes a mistake, it does kind of tarnish everyone else because people who don't obsessively follow this say, well, you can't really trust any of them.
Exactly. And I think 60 Minutes was pretty big, Howie, too. You had Lara Logan that had basically a full year to vet her primary witness, and obviously it did not happen. That's supposed to be the apex of journalism. So people see this and they say, can I trust what I'm seeing? And then they look at the messenger and they say, if he's pushing or she's pushing a narrative because she's supposed to give an opinion more and more, then, well, I can't trust maybe the message or the messenger. So I think that's really a trend we saw in 2013, more opinion leading to more mistrust.
Right, and I agree with you that 60 Minutes being such a storied franchise and a 4 or 5 decade reputation, that kind of high-profile mistake just gets noticed a lot more.
Sure.
Now, in your Mediaite column, you offered a bunch of predictions. You did say we shouldn't hold you to these, but of course I want to get the videotape here in case you're wrong.
Okay.
Let me ask you about one of them. You said this in 2014, Chuck Todd replacing David Gregory at Meet the Press. Of course, NBC recently signed David Gregory to a new contract, not recently, but not that long ago. So are you saying you wish that Chuck Todd will get the job, or you think that he actually might?
I think that Meet the Press is now at a 20-year low in terms of the demo. I think it constantly trails Face the Nation on CBS and This Week on ABC. And with all the cuts that Deborah Turnish, she's the new president of NBC, is talking about in terms of Washington, that show may either be cut altogether, is what I'm hearing. Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski may take that role. Or I think the most pragmatic change, if you're going to just do a change for change itself, is to take the senior White House correspondent, Chuck Todd, and put him in the place of David Gregory. So that was one prediction.
No way Meet the Press goes away. But
I agree.
We got 20 seconds here. Jay Leno, who does his last Tonight Show next month, to CNN at 9 o'clock. The guy who was #1 on the Tonight Show is going to do a cable show?
I think given the past relationship with Jeff Zucker and the fact that CNN needs to sign a big free agent, he's the biggest free agent out there. He's like the Peyton Manning of talk show hosts. I can see Jay Leno going to CNN. Fox is going to have a say in that, Fox TV as well. That's the war you're going to see in 2014. Who gets Jay Leno services high.
All right. The fun about these predictions is that maybe it can come true, or maybe a year from now we play the tape. Joe Concha, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Howie.
Ahead on Media Buzz, American Journalism Review is done as a print magazine. We'll ask the publisher whether she can make it in the digital world.